Hi, everyone. I'm Musa Jallo, and I'm going to be moderating for Teresa Rivera, who is the CEO of the company What Boricua looks like. Sorry for the mispronunciation. And we're going to be talking about the power of dreams and healing through organizing.
Thank you, Musa, and you're doing just fine with the word. Don't sweat it.
Thank you. I'm trying my best.
Hi everybody. Thank you for joining our quick little session. It is good to be here with you all. I'm gonna jump right into it because we don't have a lot of time. It's like Musa said, my name is Teresa. I am from the Bronx. I am a proud Puerto Rican who is grounded in her indigenous and African roots. Um, I'm a community educator. I'm also a youth advocate. When I'm doing community education, my focus is Puerto Rican history and Caribbean history. And I was told myself I was a timer for myself so that I don't lose track of anything. Okay. So a little bit about my history with service. I've had the blessing of being connected to service spaces from a young age. My mom worked and still works in the community center in the South Bronx, and their focus was activism and arts. So from about the age of 5, I've been in spaces that were teaching me about social justice, teaching me about the power of art, and not just visual arts, but dance, music, theater. Now they're doing culinary arts and a lot of different things. Um, and the power of community, just the importance of a space for people to come together, the power of connecting with people, and just the importance of being in a space like that and continuing to create spaces like that. So that's where my journey started. From there, I did a service corps or like an AmeriCorps program called Public Allies. And Public Allies is like a 10-month program. You get a grant for school. This is my little plug in case any of y'all are interested in something like this. And they partner you with a community organization. And I did that when I was about 20. And the organization I got partnered with was an after school program. And I worked with 3rd to 8th graders. And it was that was like my first real job. And it was there that I realized how much I enjoyed working with young people, and how much I wanted to reconnect with service work. Because though I was in those spaces when I was young, kind of once I got into high school or like after high school, it's like a weird time period there, and I was a little disconnected. So that kind of brought me back to what my purpose was and what my passions were, which was working with community and working with young people. Um, I'm actually not going to be talking too much about my youth advocacy, but if you do have questions about that at the end, like feel free to ask me. I decided to focus this session um, around my community education. So, like I said, I do community education around Puerto Rican and Caribbean history. This was important to me because it's where my family is from. It is where a lot of people in my community are from. Um, when I was younger, have, I was educated on my history. Um, but when you're young, things don't really click the same as they do when you're older. And then some point in my, from middle school to high school, I really wasn't interested in any of that. And that was probably because while in school, I didn't learn about Puerto Rico. I didn't learn about the Caribbean. I didn't learn about indigenous cultures. I didn't learn about African cultures. And when we did, it's just like the history of our oppression, which it's not empowering to learn that history. Um, so when I was older and I started college, I read a book about Puerto Rican history, and it kind of reopened my eyes to this information that I was lacking. And when I learned about Puerto Rican history and I learned about the relationship between Puerto Rico and the US, when I learned about the powerful ancestors I came from, it it changed my life completely. And it's what inspired me to start doing community education and bring this information to people in my community, because I wasn't the only one who was having this disconnect. And not even only in the Puerto Rican community and the Black and Brown community. When I spoke to people, they're like, yeah, I didn't learn about X, Y, and Z. I still don't learn about X, Y, and Z. They don't teach us about this. They don't teach us about that. So I became a bridge for my community to bring that information to them. And what else did I want to say? So the name of this segment was about healing through organizing. So how I felt that healed me. Mainly, I just want to drive 2 points to you all. And it might sound, I don't know, kind of hippie-ish, but it really is what it is. But the power of community and the power of love is healing on its own. No matter what you're doing, if you're moving through those two powers and those two energies, you're not only healing yourself, but you're healing people around you. So when I was doing my community education, connecting with people, planting seeds in people, also learning, because being an educator is all about teaching, but I learn as I teach. Um, it healed me, it changed how I was feeling about things, mentally and emotionally. And then just the power of love. I really do have a love for the people around me, for the people I meet, um, for Puerto Rican people, for Black and Brown people, for people from the Bronx, from New York, from all the cities throughout the US that are underserved. And it was through this work that I began to feel grounded, that I found peace, that I felt more empowered in who I was. I'm not just the way that I was taught it, a Puerto Rican from the Bronx who has no history, who has no connections to her island, who is in an underserved community, and like that's it, the end of my story. Um, so just doing my community education along with my youth advocacy, um, it it definitely helped my mental and emotional state grow from where it had been. Like most people, after high school, even like during the end of high school, those years are a little shaky. Maybe not everybody goes through it, but I feel like most people go through it where it's like you're just trying to figure out you're trying to figure out what's going around you. You're starting to process things you've been through. You're still going through stuff. You're going through new stuff. It was just a wild time in life. So from between like 17 and 20, it was just like WTF basically. And then once I was able to like start my organizing, start my educating, that I was able to like take a breath, enjoy what I was doing and where I was at. And then it also gave me clarity to process everything that happened in those 3 years. And I'm still processing those couple of years. Um, but doing this work, I don't think I would have been able to do that without this. I think if I was, and like this is no shade to anybody who picked this path, but like I think if I was in a 9 to 5 doing like corporate work, I don't like I'm sure I would have been able to go through the process, but it would have been different. Um, Being with community and being with people and talking out your experiences, it made the process a lot easier for me. Okay, yeah, he he feels a testimony, um, and I feel like it happened just a lot smoother. And if you feel supported too when you're doing organizing work, you're not healing by yourself. You're healing with people. Boom. And that's where I'm gonna end that note. I liked that. And I know that was quick, but that was my 7 or 8 minutes. So we only don't have much left. Does anybody have questions, comments, concerns, anything that resonated with something you want clarity on?
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and I know I asked you this earlier, but I think it's worth repeating. I asked you, what are ways in which we can start learning about our own ancestry or history? Because for you, like you mentioned, that process only started in university because you weren't really learning those things in high school, in middle school. So,
Yeah. So there's a few ways. Okay. There's a few ways that you can go about this. I was also telling Musa that, learning your history or going back into your history can be complicated for some people. So to not be discouraged if it brings up emotions for you or if it seems difficult, because everybody has a different experience, a different path. Um, so there's a few ways. One way is that talking to your family. And like I said, that could be easier, it could be hard. I know if I try to ask my grandmother about Puerto Rico, she's like, for everything, she doesn't remember. She just doesn't want to talk about it. I don't know what she went through still. She doesn't want to talk about it. But you can start with your family, um, asking your parents questions, asking your aunts and uncle questions. The internet is a beautiful place, social media. I found there's just so many educational pages out there, history pages. Follow them. It does not hurt to see a history fact on your timeline once in a while. So definitely search social media, um, Instagram. I know TikTok is like the new thing, but the people, even on TikTok, they be preaching some history. I follow a few I can share if you're interested more in Puerto Rican or Caribbean history, or even Black history. I like Consciously. I don't know if any of you know who that is. Um, if you're a reader, definitely find a book. That's where I started. But I'm not at heart. I want to be a reader, but I have so many books in my house I haven't read. I haven't read a book in a long time, but it's there in my heart that I want to be. Um, and it was a book that really kind of like got my gears going. What's some other ways? Yeah, I would start with those three. Let me see what the chat.
One, just make sure I say I thank you and acknowledge you as a being a healer and just growing with you. And I guess whether it be a question and even just you as a sister queen Boricua, you already know whether it be my daughter, my son, and even my wife. I'm blessed to kind of grow with you. And you experienced a time with me when I was struggling with how we were literally trying to grow. I felt like I was almost labeled as the black angry young organizer. And there was a level of you stepping back and stepping up in your leadership as an entrepreneur to kind of encourage not only myself but a movement that was established. So I guess my question to for me and even for the young leaders, even if they watch this recording, how did you make that decision? Because you were literally at a place, and I could be wrong. It was almost like you were at a place where, okay, you got my brothers and sisters that's here, but at the same time, I need to make sure that I am where I want to be, and here it is. And then all of a sudden, we in New York, like, boy, Quad looks like I mean, even with my wife with the merch, you see what I'm saying? Riding around with the sticker, you feel me? So, any thoughts around that? Because, like, I mean, I respect you. We respect you. So, much respect, Queen.
Thank you. So I mean, the decision, I can't lie. I feel like the pandemic did push the agenda because um, I was already planning on like as far as before I get to like the Boricua looks like the workshops. I was already planning to do workshops, but that could be complicated when it comes to like finding space, renting a space, all those kind of things. So the pandemic started and I was able to go virtual and do my workshops virtually and connect, have people at my workshops that just weren't from New York City, but have people from California or even from Puerto Rico, from Ohio in my workshops, kind of like really got the ball rolling. Like I started talking to more people, connecting with more people, and realizing that a lot of people had this feeling. So actually real quick before I get to let me just tell the people what Boricua looks like is. So firstly, Boricua is what Puerto Ricans call themselves, um, because the indigenous name of the island is Borinquen. Before the Spaniards came and named it Rich Port, Puerto Rico, it was Borinquen. So people from the island of Puerto Rico are Boricuas before anything. And the line I started, it's not even supposed to be a line. It's just it's a statement. It's a project. Um, is this is what Boricua looks like, because, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. When you think of a Puerto Rican or you see a Puerto Rican on TV, you might think of J Lo or someone that looks like me, and that's really all you're getting. And I come from a family, like my mom identifies as a Black woman. I come from a family that looks like me, and then I also have family that are well melanated. And oftentimes for my melanated family, they would get challenged on their Puerto Ricanness. You know, they weren't Puerto Rican enough. You're not, are you Puerto Rican? Like, are you sure? So this is what Boricua looks like. And Musa, if you want, you can click the website and share it on the screen real quick. Um, it's just a statement that this is what Boricua looks like. Whoever's wearing the shirt, this is what it is. Um, and then I know outside of the Puerto Rican community that a lot of other ethnicities identified with that feeling of, for the most part, media showing a whitewashed version of whatever their ethnicity is, and they're really being arranged. Um, I was gonna say something else, but now it escaped me. Oh, and now the project has even transformed to not only talking about physical features, but for trans Puerto Ricans or queer Puerto Ricans, that they're Boricua too, that this is also what Boricua looks like. Boricua is also queer, it's also trans, it's also um, all these different kind of things. That's not just whatever box they're trying to put us in. So very long-winded to answer your story, Jamil. The decision to start this was just putting the statement out there and telling people, because I was tired of it. My family was tired of it. All the Puerto Ricans I had spoken to in workshops were tired of it, of being challenged and questioned. Oh, if you don't speak Spanish, are you Puerto Rican? Have you ever been to the island, or you're not Puerto Rican? Um, so that's what pushed this decision of just like, we need to put in people's faces. Like, boom, this is what Boricua looks like. Boricua is also plus size. Boricua is Black. Boricua is, you know, whatever a Puerto Rican is, that's what it is. Let me just see in the chat real quick. I feel like we're already almost out of time. And definitely let me know if I said your name wrong. Famita said, true. Also, things they learn in school are not 100% accurate. They fake the real story of Thanksgiving 100%. More of a visual learner. I felt that. Documentaries, yes, and videos. Thank you, Musa. That's also a vibe. I love a good documentary. Going to historical places, also, yes. I don't know. I feel like most of you are NYC based. I don't know if you've heard of the Schomburg Center in Harlem. It's a branch of the public library. Schomburg is actually a Black Puerto Rican too. Um, and Schomburg is known for archiving Black history. Arturo Schomburg, basically when he was a young person, a teacher told him that Black people had no history, Puerto Ricans had no history, and he made it his life's work to prove that teacher wrong. And he is the reason we have so much archival material of the Black community and the Puerto Rican community, which is really impressive for the time. This is like early 1900s, because there was no Googling something. Like, he was literally doing this, collecting all these things by hand. We as the youth have no one to lead us to learn our history. In school, we just memorize events and dates. I feel that. I feel that 100%. And that's why I was like, I'm gonna have to educate myself and like find other ways to do it, because school wasn't doing it for me. I was telling Musa before y'all came in that I feel like schools are getting a little better. I feel like when I was in school, it was like zero, but like the schools that I've worked in now as an adult, I hear you. The schools that I've worked in now as an adult, like I was in a classroom when they were talking about Lincoln and this idea that Lincoln didn't actually free the slaves, as I was taught. So I feel like there's some progress being made. There's always more for it to go. No problem. And Musa also dropped my information in there if you want to stay connected. Like I said, I don't only focus on Puerto Rican history. I also talk about Caribbean history, because the Caribbean is a connected place. We're not just individual islands. And I can't talk about Puerto Rican and Caribbean history without us talking about Black American history and African history. So definitely check it out if interested. Stay connected if interested. Find, however you want to self-educate and find your roots, and definitely always stay connected to community, whatever your community is, and always move in love. I think that is how I heal, is while organizing. I'll leave you all with that.